Ajibade, and I'm the director and founder of the Brain and Body Foundation.
Oh, okay. Voice is good.
Okay.
Thank you. Someone.
Hello, everyone. My name is, okay, I'm doing it again. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. David Ajibade, and I'm the director and founder of the Brain and Body Foundation. First of all, I want to thank the commandant and staff, especially Commodore Ayolugbode, for this opportunity to speak to you today. We're going to be talking about health management, wellness, and wellness tips for people who are above the age of 40, both men and women. And I think this is a very, very important topic. I think really it should be shouted from the rooftops, because some of these conditions, some of the health challenges some of you might be facing already, but we need to let you know more about them and be able to, so that you will be able to prepare adequately for them. And of course, when you are dealing with them, to be able to deal more effectively with them, because it's the little things that you do that will determine to a very large extent. And yes, genes matter, your genetic composition matters, but probably even more than that, what the things you do and you don't do can affect whether or not you have a serious heart condition, for example, or a stroke. It's what you do or you don't do more than anything else, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this next few minutes that I've been given the privilege to talk about. As a brief background, I do have a military background. Again, I studied in the Nigerian military school. I finished 88, 89, and I went on to I was in the Nigerian Defense Academy for the first regular course for a few months, and then I opted to go and do medicine at the University of Ibadan. I know. People will say, why did you leave? Well, it had always been my desire to understand health and medicine, especially how the brain and the body work. And I saw that that desire was stronger, and I eventually had to succumb to that desire. But in a way, it has brought me back to the force, back to Nigeria, to look at how to help and work with my past colleagues, junior and seniors, to help you deal with health more effectively, especially those of you in the military, because it's so important that you face unique challenges being in the military, especially those of you who have been exposed to warfare. And that short period of time in which you were at that battlefront can make or mar your health for the rest of your life. And so if you understand how to prepare for that, it also makes a huge difference. But we're talking about general health principles for those over the age of 40. And I want to start with this quote: "Make men large and strong, and tyranny will bankrupt itself in trying to make shackles for it." Make men large and strong, and tyranny will bankrupt itself in making shackles for it. And that's by Henry Ward Beecher. And the whole point behind this is that if you are strong enough, if you strengthen your brain, if you preempt these things, if you strengthen your brain, strengthen your mind, strengthen your body, and I'm not just talking about gym and lifting weights, although that could be part of it, but really giving your brain and body what they need to function properly. And I think we need instruction on what are the basic things that your body needs. It's not just amala and eba. It's not just to satisfy your hunger. There are specific needs that specific tissues in your body need in order to be strong and function effectively throughout your life. And we'll be talking about that some more. And I call this the building strength approach. And the building strength approach is really something that we've been mandated by the Ministry of Health to specifically teach about and train about. And so the truth is, we get weaker as we grow older. That's a general principle. It shouldn't always be that way. We can actually affect the rate of decline as you grow older. And in front of you should see a chart here. Basically, when you're young, a baby, you're still very weak, and then you start to grow strong, your muscles they begin to develop, your brain begins to develop, your bones begin to develop, and you see that upward trajectory. And then you see that at the teenage years, you see some peaks, a little bit of a peak. That's when you're really developing muscle, developing bone, developing physical strength. And then you keep on growing and developing probably till the age of 23, 24, 25, when your brain really begins to fully mature. And the part that matures, that is last to mature, is called the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for judgment, decision making, executive function. Is the part of the brain that tells you not to do something wrong or not to drive too fast, for instance. That's why they're very careful about giving people below the age of 21 driver's license. I'm telling you this just to give you an overview of what is the natural progression. You will remember that when you were younger, your muscles were well developed, and you see that kind of plateaus. You develop full function at about the age of 25, 30 years of age. And there's a plateau, like I said. After the age of 30, things begin to decline. Your muscles aren't as firm as before. Your bones may not be as strong. And depending on your lifestyle, your habits, your decisions, those will now determine how steep that decline is. Is it going to be a rapid decline, or is it going to be a gradual decline? I want to talk to you about how you can make it a gradual decline. And of course, you see that it goes down to the age of 80. As we go along, you get slower and slower. In my opinion, you shouldn't be anything. You shouldn't live any, or you shouldn't depart from this world before the age of 80, because we have the tools, we have the knowledge to keep you living way beyond 80 actually. But anything before 80, in my opinion, is just unjust. So like I said, you plateau at 30, your lifestyle matters a lot. Some of the things that we begin to see after the age of 30 and towards the age of 40, really, I would say when you get to be closer to 40, begin to see sleep problems. Your energy level has reduced, your muscle mass has reduced as well. You have some people begin to have digestive problems. They're constipated. They don't go to the bathroom as regularly. They feel when they go to the bathroom, they don't feel they've emptied as much as they should. Memory begins to be a challenge. You begin to struggle to remember names, begin to struggle to remember dates and times. Before that used to be very, very easy. Then there's this other aspect, and I'm just mentioning a few of them. I just wanted to lay groundwork. Most of this you already are familiar with, unfortunately, but some of you may get to deal with these later. And again, I want to show you what to do to preempt those. The last thing I want to mention is that reduced ability to bounce back after disease or injury. And I think nothing else exemplifies that more than this current pandemic that we are in, the COVID-19 pandemic. What we are seeing is that the older you are, the more likely you are to have the more severe form of the disease. And beyond that, once you have the disease and you receive treatment, it takes a longer for people to recover, especially as you're growing older. In fact, some of the more long-term effects, when people are still dealing with severe fatigue. I have a few patients like that. Severe fatigue. They haven't recovered mentally from the disease. We see that happening more in people in their 40s and 50s. So it's a very important thing that we need to know about. Aging also affects men and women differently. So, for instance, men will deal with the prostate problems, sexual dysfunction. Men who used to be so virile before. Men who used to be so virile before. Okay, what's the problem? How many minutes have we done?
9.
No, this is I'm doing 30 minutes straight now.
Okay, continue.
Okay. Okay. So men used to be virile, they used to be very sexually active, they used to keep up with their younger wives or same age wives, they begin to feel that they're not able to do as much. And working with some of you participants, we've seen that there are some challenges with regards to that, especially when you're dealing with all the stress, and we'll talk about that some more. Women, especially as you get to the mid 40s and beyond, when menopause begins to set in, we hear about night sweats, mood disturbances, depression, sleep becomes a problem, sex does not become as desirable as it used to be. In fact, there are actually physical changes. Some may actually have drier vaginas, and of course, with a dry vagina, there's less of a desire for sex. So again, we are seeing these problems. Those are not diseases per se. The next list of conditions are diseases. And I really want to focus your attention on the first 4 or 5, because those 4 or 5, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, even strokes and memory problems, those tend to be, and I'm not saying that this is an absolute fact, but what we are seeing is that these conditions tend to be they affect black people in a much greater percentage than white people, though. And I actually have a series called Why Blacks Die First, and we address these things. But they tend to affect black people more. And what I've seen is that when people come maybe to the college for this 1-year program, we see that some people who never had hypertension before, they come, and because of the intensity of the work that is being placed upon you, they tend to develop high blood pressure. The same thing on the battlefront. People who didn't have high blood pressure before, they go to the battlefront, they're there for about 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then they develop hypertension and other heart conditions, or even diabetes. This is because the ability to regulate your blood pressure, the ability to regulate infection and the immune response to infection begins to wane as you approach 40, if you don't do something about it. And so it leaves you in a more weakened state, so that when there's a stress or a stressor, that throws things off. And so it's very important that you understand that these are the risks you will be faced with. We've talked about strokes, we've talked about heart disease. I have this picture in front of you showing it's like a progression. It's like a cross section of a blood vessel, showing how over time plaque builds up, the blood vessel walls become less flexible, and these set you up for problems with cardiovascular disease. I'm not saying all this to make you feel afraid. I'm saying all this to say this is a reality, but that there's another reality that you can apply to this reality and get better results. I'm still going to have to talk about a few more statistics, because I think you need to know this. I think everybody needs to know this who is a black person. Black women tend to have the highest death rates. These are statistics from the US, because the US probably has the most heterogeneous society in the world, where you have the blacks, the whites, the browns, the Hispanics, the Spanish, the Chinese. So they're able to, it's like a whole pool from which they can study how different ethnic groups, how they differ in terms of their genes and in terms of their response to disease and drugs. So this is really, really valuable data. And basically what they're saying is that black people have highest rates of cancer. African Americans are twice as likely to suffer a heart attack or a stroke. Nigeria has the highest death rates from cancer in Africa. So those are really, really sad information. And Nigeria again has among the top 3 or the bottom 3 lowest life expectancies in the whole of Africa, and that's basically in the world. So we have a lot to go. I mean, obviously, you all are going to live for a very, very long time, certainly above the age of 40, hopefully. But again, you need to know this is the environment in which we live, and there are certain things that make you more prone to dying early, and you need to know about that. So the question now is, what makes people age faster? We've talked about the risks. We talked about what things can happen to you as you grow older. Now we want to talk about what are the things that increase that decline, make it more rapid. I mean, you could live to be 80, but if your quality of life is not what it should be, if you're having to walk around in a wheelchair, you have to take multiple medications, and you wake up in the morning, you feel terrible, you can't think well, you can't remember well, you can't do your work as a commanding officer effectively enough, well, that's going to be a liability. If you can't satisfy your wife, or you can't satisfy your husband, or if you don't want to have sex, that's going to be a liability. It's going to affect your mental health. It's going to affect your family life, and your probably is going to affect your finances as well. So it's really important that we understand this. And I want to read this quote out to you because, again, I love quotes. But I think this is particularly apt. A man does not come to the almshouse or the jail by the tyranny of fate or circumstance, but by the pathway of groveling thoughts and base desires. Nor does a pure-minded man fall suddenly into crime by the stress of any mere external force. The criminal thought had long been secretly fostered in his heart, and the hour of opportunity revealed its gathered power. This is by James Allen, and you're wondering, why am I reading this philosophical thought? Basically, I'm saying that things don't just happen. When a heart attack happens, when a stroke happens, when you suddenly have diabetes, or you break a bone, many times it's because of these little things that you've been doing or you've been failing to do over a period of time, sometimes decades before that happens. So if we are aware of the things that you should do and the things that you should not do, it helps. And if, of course, if you apply it, it helps only if you apply it. You will be more likely and more apt to avoid those problems, because, again, it's more difficult to come out of those problems when they happen than it's easy to get into them, but it's more difficult to come out of them. I like to talk about the laws of life. Some of you have heard me on TV talk about it. But the laws of life are 7, and basically they affect everything about your health and your life. It's in front of you on the screen. First of all, it deals with the words you speak, the words you hear, the words you read, whether from other people, the words you speak to yourself. It probably matters more than what other people say. I'm not going to spend too much time on all of these, but I want to really talk about the 2 in the middle, and probably number 6 as well: your thoughts and your emotions, and of course what you eat. So let's talk about stress. you are going to be dealing with stress, and probably a lot of it is whether it's emotional stress. Most likely it's going to be emotional stress that arises from having to beat deadlines and having to work with other people and deal with family issues at home. Some of you will have to do that. Past injuries can affect the disease. Can affect the aging process because your body your body generates energy to deal with disease, to heal itself. Your body generates energy to recover from injuries, and so the more energy you have, that you don't have to siphon towards dealing with problems, the more energy you will have to face your work, face your schoolwork, and deal with all the executive things that you have to do. So as much as possible, you want to be able to deal with disease as much as you possibly can. If your doctor has provided you with medication, prescribed medication, it's very important that you follow his advice and follow his prescriptions rigorously, so that when it's all over, you don't have to wonder why you didn't get the complete healing from that problem. Many times those drugs have to be taken for the full course before they will actually work. So that's very important. Poor health habits, bad health habits, obviously you know what I'm talking about: smoking, drinking, especially drinking several bottles of Gouda, for instance, at night, smoking at night, eating heavy meals at night before you go to bed. Those will all cause major problems. They will all put a stress on your body. Remember, your body works on energy. Your body needs to sleep, and body needs to rest. The quality of your rest is very, very important, and I think I should talk about that really quickly. Some of you may not be able to sleep for 5 hours. Some of you may not even have up to 4 hours. It's really important that whatever amount of sleep you have, that you maximize and optimize that time of sleep. So, number 1, make sure the room is dark. Turn out all the lights. Pull the curtains down. If you can't make your room dark as possible, get those shades, those things they use on airplanes, for instance, that they cover. Now I see them using them as face masks. But the thing for the eyes that covers your eyes, make sure that when you close your eyes, nothing you see, nothing but blackness. Some people close their eyes because there's so much light, they still see the light. So you want to cover your eyes. So if you have 4 hours of sleep, please make sure that that 4 hours of sleep counts, because if you don't, that thing is going to take away from your energy. It's going to poor sleep will raise your levels of stress hormones, and they will make you more susceptible to disease, especially things like hypertension. So it's very important. And even if you have 4 hours of sleep, whenever you can, catch up on the remaining extra hours of sleep within the week as much as possible. The ideal amount of time you need to sleep is 7 to 8 hours, ideally. I know that's not always possible, but make it a priority that you get the most out of your sleep. I think it's very, very important. And I also recommend taking some vitamin C or vitamin D before you go to bed, because that helps in the healing process. It helps you to recover more. What I find out is that once you take those, and even fiber, I'll talk about that later. Once you take those, you wake up in the morning, you feel more alert and more ready to meet the day than if you didn't have those things in your system, because those things help your body repair and heal and recover itself. I'm going to skip a little bit just to just so that we don't take up too much of your time. But I do want to mention that when you're stressed, it affects your immune system. And of course, many of you know that if I'm going to show you, in fact, probably I should show a picture here. So this picture shows the mind and the emotions at the top, and then the nervous system and the endocrine system and the immune system. Whatever happens to your mind, if you are stressed, if you're not sleeping like you should, if you're trying to beat a deadline, you're arguing, or you have fights with your co-participants, or arguing about things and it's causing stress, it will translate to a weakened immune system. And the weakened immune system is the last thing you want during this COVID-19 period. You want your immune system to be primed and ready to work. So it's very important that you understand that your immune system needs to be strengthened. And again, I will talk about some of the things that are helpful, but the top three, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, are basic. Now in our foundation, we use really custom made supplements that are really top end, like $100 a bottle. But I still make sure I take my vitamin C and vitamin D and zinc, because you cannot beat the fundamentals. The fundamentals will always be the fundamentals. And you can build upon that, but you should not deal with anything without the foundation. So I just want to say a few things about navigating your time at NDC. From what I've seen in this short period of time that I've worked with participants and with the staff, is that those participants who come into the school, who come into their course with, shall we say, a positive attitude, those who say that, well, I'm going to enjoy this time. I know it's stressful, but I'm going to make the most of it. I'm not going to let the stress overwhelm me. It seems to me that those who actually come with that attitude, they are the ones who don't get stressed and seem to do well at the school, and they recover. They don't. They're not. Their health isn't affected negatively. I mean, I met a couple of participants too. I was shocked. There was a time where once in a while through our foundation we bring in nutrients and things that can help the staff, the participants, and of course all the participants jump on them, especially when we bring stress supports. Things for your stress, to bring your stress levels down, things to boost your immune system, even things for the brain. And of course, participants would line up and collect. There was one that said, he walks in and he says, no, I'm not stressed at all. I just heard we were given free stuff. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, you mean you're not stressed at all? He said, no, he's not stressed. He just has an attitude that he's not going to let himself be stressed. And his classmates all agreed, this guy does not get stressed at all. That may not be easy for you, but bear that in mind. Just set your mind up in that direction that you're going to deal with this. I like Colonel Deboye Obasanjo was my school son. We called him Boy. He was my boy in NMS, and he had the same attitude too. When I was telling him how it can be a really stressful time, he said, "Well, I'm going to enjoy it." So I was like, "Yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy." So, Deboye, I wish you the very best during this your course, and I know you'll do very very well. So that's the attitude we want to go with. Now, in addition to that attitude, the attitude is not enough to scale through. In my opinion, you've got to do the right things. We've talked about some of them. Exercise. Well, we talk about sleep. We talk about nutrients. I think you really should make it a personal responsibility to exercise. Either walk around a lot, expose yourself to the sunlight. Sunlight, and I say this a lot on NTA and on different programs or whenever I speak. Sunlight helps exposure to the sunlight, especially between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. The hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Exposure to the sunlight enables you to make vitamin D. It also enables you to make what is known as nitric oxide. Nitric oxide helps to relax your blood vessels, and it helps to improve blood flow. If blood flow is compromised, you will suffer. The part of your body your part of your body will suffer if it's not getting enough blood, whether it's the brain, whether it's the kidneys, whether it's the bones, whether it's to your heart. Blood flow is crucial, and nitric oxide is probably the most important chemical for your cardiovascular system. And they are saying, research is showing, that when you're out in the sun, especially between the hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., with as little on, maybe a shirt, a t-shirt, and shorts, you will get the best from the sun, both vitamin D and nitric oxide. Obviously, most of you cannot do that, so therefore you should take vitamin D supplements. And again, I'm saying all this because blacks are affected where this is concerned. As a matter of fact, people are now pointing to our low levels of vitamin D as one of the reasons why we have such high rates of heart attacks, cancer, diabetes, and strokes, amongst other things. So vitamin D is really, really important. I have a picture here of some of the things I take at night. On by the right is vitamin D. I take at least 10,000 international units. That's above what is the recommended. But again, they did not study black people. Now the new research is showing that we need at least 10,000. The research is showing that white people need at least 10,000. So if white people need 10,000, black people will need it more. The thing by the left, the powder by the left is fiber. That is so crucial for digestive health, but not just digestive health, for mental health as well. I don't have time to explain that more. In front of you is a picture of two mice. On the mouse, they were both born from the same parents on the same day, so they're identical twins, if you will. The mouse on the left is vitamin D deficient. The mouse on the right has enough vitamin D, and they show over a period of weeks or months, they show the difference between vitamin D deficiency and vitamin D sufficiency, and you can see that it is clear that the mouse on the left is sickly and weakly looking. The mouse on the right is more buoyant, and you can see that it's as a result of vitamin D insufficiency and deficiency. I have a series. I'm sure you will get all these slides. So these are the different levels they are now saying that you need to have. Ideally, the range should be between 40 and 60 nanograms per mil. Nanograms per mil is 40 to 60. Unfortunately, as you can see in the global levels of vitamin D, blacks have the least. And look at that, it's 16 nanograms. The average is 16 nanograms per mil among blacks. Remember, the ideal is 40 to 60, so we are less than half of what the ideal should be. And they've done studies with COVID-19, and they are seeing that those who have the most severe forms of COVID-19, and those who are most likely to die from the disease, are those who have the least amount of, or who are insufficient, or have low levels of vitamin D. Over 98% of the time is those who have low vitamin D. And I have this picture here that shows you the progression. That's 80% of 80% of people who have COVID-19 will have the mild symptoms. And some 14% or so will have maybe the really serious chest problems, and then a much lower percentage will have the systemic involvement. Now let me quickly say this: the systemic involvement is not because of the virus itself alone. It's because of your immune system, or the person's immune system not being is actually being dysfunctional, not being able to coordinate. Instead of coordinating itself, is suddenly beginning to turn on the body, attacking the brain, attacking the kidneys, attacking the blood vessels, attacking the liver, causing those major problems that eventually shut the patient's life down and causes death. And they are finding out that vitamin D is what helps to coordinate the immune system so it doesn't go haywire or berserk. We cannot emphasize the importance of vitamin D. So please, 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 whatever you do, make sure you take vitamin D on a regular basis, especially during this your period at NDC. I have this table, this slide here showing those who are at risk. Again, black people are more at risk than white people are. If you are over the older people, and certainly over 40, will be more at risk than somebody who is 15, 16, or 20 years old. If you're obese, you're more likely. If you have chronic disease, and we talk about the big four. If you're dealing with diabetes, hypertension, lung disease, and heart disease, these can all reduce your vitamin D levels. So please remember, you've got to pay attention to your health. Don't take it for granted. Don't feel that, well, I've been healthy all this time and so nothing's going to happen. Take charge of your health. And in that regard, with our collaboration, there are areas in which we can help with the Brain and Body Foundation. Everything from challenges with sleep. We had a lot of participants who had ulcers. We helped with there as well. Those who had headaches and pains, lower back pains. By the way, vitamin D helps with lower back pain as well. Those who are dealing with sexual dysfunction, maybe they go home on holidays and they're not able to perform like they should. We can help there as well. And of course, your immune system. Help to build up your immune system so you don't fall sick as regularly. I will have to take a round up here, but I don't want to miss this opportunity to read this final quote. I think this is one of my best quotes ever. I'm going to read it out. It says by Mrs. Shedwick, "It is the opinion of those who best understand the physical system that if the physical laws were strictly observed from generation to generation, there would be an end to the frightful diseases that cut life short, and of the long list of maladies that make life a torment or a trial, and that this wonderful machine, the body, this goodly temple, would gradually decay, and men, and of course women, would at last die as if gently falling asleep." Mrs. Shedwick. So I've talked about the laws of life. Pardon me if I've not described them and gone into them in detail because of the time, but there are laws. Basically, you have a lot of control over the trajectory of your life where your health is concerned. You should please take charge and hold on to it because there is a lot you can do to safeguard your health. Again, I want to thank the Commandant and staff, especially Commodore Ayo Lubude, for this wonderful opportunity to speak to you. And we will always be available to work with you. God bless. How many minutes was that? Not bad. Okay.
No social distance there. If we go record, come back and go say no. Maybe you believe that they do the music, they dance, they go.
Lagos Center.
YouTube, Jibo.
This is Lagos Center.
Jibo is in Lagos now. There's nothing like social distance there. They're starting their way.
Yinka, let me see you.
Yhiyh, come.
Hello?
that okay? Talk, let's test your audio.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How's my audio? 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 How's my audio?
We can go, right? Come on. Go.
Hi, I'm Dr. David Ajibade, Executive Director of the Brain and Body Foundation, and this is Your Health in Your Hands. You're welcome. Have you, I don't know about you, but I'm over 40, and quite a few people I know, and my friends are over 40, and when we started hitting that 40-year mark, some things started changing in our bodies. I mean, I remember when I was like struggling to remember things that I would remember easily before, and I thought, wow, I mean, look at me, I'm quote unquote Mr. Health. I'm the one talking about nutrient supplements and exercise and all those things. And I found I started in some ways struggling. Things were not as, they didn't come to me as quickly as they used to before. And even my eyesight, like when I turned 42, 43, I started, straining a little bit. I mean, I can still do a lot without glasses, but when it comes to the really, really tiny print, like some of these Bibles have really, really small print, I find myself having to look for glasses. I mean, it's like very, very low magnification, obviously, but I still have to use them nevertheless. So even we didn't think it would happen to us. I didn't think it would happen to me, but we are having to deal with the challenges of aging. And that's why I thought we should do this brief talk on the death march. I know it sounds really, really, really morbid, but that's that's the way it came to me. So basically, we're going to talk about how to manage your health. Those of you, especially those of you who have turned 40 and above. I know some of you in your 80s think that 40s, you don't have problems when you're 40, but some of us do. So, and it's also very important to talk about these things now, because 40 seems to be the age when things begin to go south. I'm going to draw a graph for you soon, but 30 is when you kind of like get to your peak, and then you kind of like hold it to your mid 30s, 35, 36, and then you now see that things don't just come as easily health-wise as before. I mean, you could run 5 miles without thinking about it. All of a sudden, you're finding it hard to even walk 1 mile. So those are changes that are happening because of actual biochemical, physiological changes. And by that I mean the amounts of certain hormones are reducing, the amounts of other hormones are increasing. Your body is not able to fight disease. Your immune system is not as up to it as before. And there are different reasons for that. But the whole point behind this talk today is that there are things that you absolutely can do to stem the tide, and that we are not left to the tyranny of our genes. We're not left to fate. I don't think anybody should rely on something as fickle as your genes to say, well, whatever will be, will be. There's a lot we can do to affect the course of our health and our lives. And yes, there are some things that will drop by the roadside, but we should be able to live optimally and in quote unquote vigor till our 70s and 80s if we do the right things. And so those are some of the right things that we will be talking about in this program today. So stay tuned, and we will be right back. Okay. Coisio. All right, so I'm going to draw on the board. We need to. No, I don't think I'm going to draw on the board. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm going to draw on the board. Okay. All right, so I'm going to draw on the board. Now, wow, it's only. Hey, Lord. Alrighty. Okay. All right, I'm back. Ready?
Ika. Is your camera?
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome back. All right, I'm going to draw a rough estimation of what health looks like throughout your life. So remember, when you're born, let's say you're born, newborn here, this is zero. You're born a fresh baby, bouncing baby boy or girl. And you basically, hopefully, you start with good, relatively good genes. And you're not nowhere near being complete yet. So everything is still growing and everything is still developing. So you're not 100%. So let's say you're about 30%. But wait, the truth is, when you start, you're not exactly 0 years of age. You're actually probably around, it goes a little further back, about 9 months. But even then, at 9 months, the biology and the science says that you've probably been around longer than 9 months because you were in your mother's ovaries. The ovaries that were in your mother as a baby when she was in your grandmother. So I mean that gets really complicated. But here's what they're finding out. They're finding out that people who lived in war times, especially children, the mothers of children who lived during the war times, maybe they were pregnant with a child, that the children of those children, in other words, the grandbabies of the mother, end up having certain diseases as a result of the stress the grandmother faced 50, 60, 100 years ago. Well, not 100 years, about 50, 60 years ago. Can you imagine that? That what's happened to your grandparents can actually be affecting you physically after they are long gone. Amazing, but it's a scientific fact. Anyway, so let's just stay with zero. All right, so when you're 0 years of age, let's say about 30%. And then as you begin to grow, you're developing, you get to your teen years, the 12, 13, 14, 15, 19. You get to be, I mean, your muscles start developing, your voice changes. If you're a guy, ladies, you develop breasts, hips. All of a sudden, you're aware of your sexual potential, and you maybe do all kinds of crazy things. But really, the fact of the matter is that you get to your peak. Well, let's say when you're in your mid 20s, that's when the brain fully develops. Your body is probably fully developed by 18 years of age, 19 years, 20. But maximum development, especially of the what is known as the prefrontal cortex, that deals with executive judgment, decision making, maturity, that only develops at that point when you in your mid 30s and above. So let's say this is the peak. We'll give it 90%. So at 25 years of age, you kind of like plateau. You're not usually don't get any more than that unless you're doing some serious training. I mean, right now I'm just looking at average. What happens to the average person who doesn't do anything extra to their bodies? So you kind of peak at the age of 25 and you kind of plateau, level there. By the way, at the age of 30 is when testosterone levels in men and probably in women as well begin to decline. So they say by the time you're 60, you have half the testosterone levels you had when you were in your 20s and late 20s. So that's why vigor and sexual prowess are not what they used to be. And then after about 30, and then we're now getting to the big age, 40. Let's draw that line here. So when you get to 40, like I said, things just don't begin to work as well. You know, that's really when you begin to see the decline. And some people go zoop, very sharp decline. Others may go even sharper than Others may go sharper than that. Let me see. Let me draw this. Others may go. Okay, this is not so dark. Others may just go down like that. And of course, this is just a rough estimation. There are others, however, who are able to do the right things, or maybe they have good genes too. They can see their incline is not as rapid, so they still maintain 60, 70% performance and abilities even at the age of 80. Those are the rare lucky few. So our goal today is really to talk about how you can be one of the lucky few, right? So the fortunate few. It's not. It has really nothing to do with luck, except if you have good genes. If you have good genes, man, you are lucky to have good genes. But for the rest of us, a lot of it is going to have to do with the things that you do and the things you avoid doing. Because in the final analysis, health is not really about how you feel or how good you look. Health is about what you do on a day-to-day basis. And as you know, we've talked about the laws of life, and I think we'll touch on that very soon. So let's talk about some of the things, and we're going to go to the slide now. Some problems associated with aging. So as your energy levels go lower, as you're not as up to it as before, you begin to notice some things. You're not sleeping as well. Your energy levels may be reduced. At this point, I think we should have this slide. So you're not sleeping as well as the last thing I said. I'm looking away from the camera. I can't. So I think I need to push this way.
Continue, I know you.
Let's put this under here so we can. So the eye contact is maintained. Okay. All right.
We drop this.
No, it's not showing, Abi.
It's showing this camera. Okay, it's showing that.
Okay. All right. So.
Continue that.
Not you.
Another person.
Okay, so I'm continuing. So let's talk about some of the problems associated with aging. Your sleep is not as good as you used to be. Maybe instead you were sleeping for 8 hours before, you're now sleeping for 5 hours or 6 hours. Your energy levels are reduced. You can't run the marathons before unless you're training for them. You begin to have constipation. You don't go to the bathroom as much, and when you go to the bathroom, you don't feel like you're emptying as much. You tend to bloat. Your stomach feels bloated more than usual. That happens more with women than men, but those things begin to happen. And so you're forgetting things, you're forgetting names, you're forgetting places. And then here's a big one. You have this reduced ability to bounce back after an illness or an injury or disease. And that brings us to the pandemic of our times, COVID-19. What we're seeing is that, well, for one, the older you are, the more likely you're going to have the severe form of COVID-19. The younger people have a stronger immune system. Children almost never have COVID-19. It's highly unlikely, and of course, they almost never die from COVID-19. But with those who develop COVID-19, the older you are, and of course, if you have sickness, one underlying sickness or the other, the more likely you are to have a more severe form. But even then, in addition, those of you who recover, they find out that the older you are, the more you're going to have the lingering effects of the COVID-19. So people tend to have chest pains, fibrosis from the chest, fibrosis from the lungs, and ongoing weakness. That's because your goodness gracious. Oof. My computer is off, and I didn't come with a charger. Yeah, HP. My computer went off. If I had known, I would have just sent it to my phone, my iPhone. Hey,
Long time no see.
Marga, long time now.
Our family.
Fine. How you doing?
We thank God.
Okay, so let's see.
What you do tomorrow?
Yeah, maybe we can do it tomorrow. Let's just do it tomorrow.
We're not in love 5,
the barber for me.
I need 7 to 5. I don't know which bus again.
They say they want to set the studio.
For what?
For what? Tomorrow. I think they will come tomorrow. So nobody which studio they sent.
Start by 11 tomorrow.
Kai.
Hey, tomorrow now.
Can't do 11 tomorrow.
Let's go.
I can't do 11 tomorrow.
By 5.
Okay. I think we just have about 30 minutes left, I mean.
Yeah, 5 in the evening.
Okay. Are they using this place tomorrow?
I have something I want to do by
These are the new ones I bought you. I want to keep. Although it's only the black that really works.